Today, I'm exploring some common culinary threads that characterize the Dodecanese, the island group in the southeastern Aegean. I'll make dolmades from Rhodes, stuffed with bulgur and spiced with cumin.
They look gorgeous.
Lentils cooked with orzo, topped with caramelized onions.
The onions are so delicious, they're almost like candy over this. There's a lot of really great Eastern Mediterranean flavor in this dish.
And chickpea fritters with a tahini and yogurt dip. Join me for a taste of the southeastern Aegean on My Greek Table. The Dodecanese. From tourist Mecca Rhodes to the mystical island of Patmos, where St. John wrote the Apocalypse, to bright minuscule Symi, and Kalymnos with its glorious history of sponge fishing, the Dodecanese islands each tell their own story. Although the name Dodecanese means 12 islands, there are actually 14 major and 150 minor islands. While quintessentially Greek, indeed, Kos is the birthplace of Hippocrates, the father of medicine. The Dodecanese spent several hundred years under Ottoman rule. Rhodes and Kos had been taken over by the Crusaders, who left magnificent medieval castle cities. The Italians occupied the Dodecanese during the first half of the 20th century. Yet despite the tumultuous, fascinating story of these southeastern Aegean islands, the Dodecanese have always been a cradle of Greekness, seasoned with the subtle spice of history.
I'm just snipping a little bit of mint for the filling in a really unusual stuffed grape leaf dish from the island of Rhodes. I've got a couple of tomatoes already grated in here. I'm just going to continue grating the next one. It's one of my favorite things to do in the kitchen. One of the most unusual things about this recipe, there's tomato in the filling. Another unusual ingredient that goes in here is bulgur wheat, and that's very common all over the islands in the Dodecanese. Notice I'm not cooking this. This is going to sit for a couple of hours until all of the tomato juice is absorbed by the bulgur. And then I'm adding a couple of chopped onions. I want to get this mixed. Rice is something that was a rare and expensive ingredient up until probably the mid-1960s. And bulgur was much more common. Mint is one of the most characteristic herbs in almost all dolmades recipes, no matter where they're from, all over Greece. But in the Dodecanese, stuffed grape leaves have a very, very special place in the cooking. In fact, in Rhodes, for the last couple of years, they actually have a stuffed grape leaf contest. I'm gonna chop this. You can also use dried mint. I've also got some snipped dill here, a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and a really unusual ingredient, cumin. Rhodes was a very important place in the whole spice trade, especially after the fall of Rome. A little bit of olive oil, which will give our filling a beautiful, rich texture. And I'm just gonna get this all mixed up. And when the bulgur is nice and soft and plumped up, I'll be ready to fill the dolmades. I've got my grape leaves already out and stacked here, and I'm about to blanch them and then shock chill them. I'm ready to fill the grape leaves. This beautiful bulgur stuffing is ready. It's absorbed all that tomato juice. The first thing I'm going to do is just get some olive oil in the pan and place whatever torn or shredded grape leaves I've got here on the bottom, just as kind of a layer of protection for the grape leaves, so that when they simmer, There's something in between them and the actual metal of the hot pan. You always roll the grape leaves with the vein side up. That will be the inside of the grape leaf, so that you get the beautiful shiny side on the outside. You want to snip off the tough stems. These are brined leaves. If you live near a vineyard, you can use fresh grape leaves when they're in season in the springtime. You basically want a heaping teaspoon. This will expand a bit more as the grape leaves cook. So I just want to spread the filling out a little bit so that it's kind of the same amount on each leaf. One side goes over first, then the next side, and then roll this up. And as I roll, you taper the top so that there's no overhang. Kind of bring it to a little point there. And as you do that, you end up the textbook perfect Greek dolma. This is going right into the pan, and I usually place them snugly one next to each other in a concentric circle. That helps to keep them from opening when they simmer. Remember, snugly, one next to the other. This is actually less work than it seems to be. Just to give you an example, at my own wedding, I helped roll about 2,500 of these. Almost done here. I think I counted around 30. Now, if you have more, you have a deeper pot, you can definitely stack them. You can also bake them. Add a little bit of fresh strained lemon juice and enough water, not to cover them, basically just to help them steam, because that's essentially what we want to happen here. I want to keep this nice deep green color, so I put a sheet of parchment paper over the top. And just to keep them in place, I turn a plate upside down and put it over that, cover the pot. We want to bring this to a gentle simmer. We don't want a rolling boil because we want the leaves to cook very gently so they don't open up. It's going to take about a half hour. These should be ready. Be a little careful when you do this because the steam is hot, as well as the plate and the paper. They look gorgeous. Textbook perfect stuffed grape leaves. I would typically wait about a half hour for these to cool down, but I have to taste one. They look delicious. I'm getting that beautiful herbal smell of mint that's cooked in here and the freshness of the dill. Let me just show you how light and beautiful this filling is with the bulgur and the tomato and all those herbs that have infused all of this with that beautiful, almost grassy flavor. This is powerful. It is so deliciously lemony. The cumin is just exploding in here. The herbs give it this freshness, as do the tomatoes, but everything is held together by the soft bulgur wheat. It's really, really good. I have a really nice wine to pair with this, which is an ancient Greek grape varietal called Malagousia. This is from Epanomi in northern Greece. I think it's gonna go really well with the herbal quality of these dolmas. I'm getting a lot of stone fruit in here, things like apricot, peach. I'm getting a little bit of rose petal. And I'm also getting almost a mintiness that works really beautifully with the almost floral and herbal quality of these dolmades. Isihian. I'm making a very old traditional dish found all over the Dodecanese, lentils cooked with pasta. But before I get started on the main part of this, I'm preparing the topping. The topping is called sivrasi, and it's basically caramelized onions. These are gonna cook in here very slowly for about a half hour until they have this beautiful deep color. This is something that islanders in this part of Greece have an affinity for. And they top all sorts of dishes with these caramelized onions, this sivrasi. While this is working here, I'm gonna get started on the lentils, onions, and orzo, which I've got here. The first thing I'm doing is another old technique for cooking onions in a very light way without fat, without olive oil. You're basically gonna simmer them in just a little bit of water until they become nice and soft and very sweet. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt to this for flavor, but also to draw out the moisture in the onions and help them cook a little bit faster. The onions are nice and soft. The aroma of onions that have cooked in water is very different from the aroma of onions that have softened in olive oil. This is much lighter and sweeter. The lentils are going right in. Just gonna stir those around. I've already rinsed the lentils. So I'm just gonna let this cook for about 10 minutes until they're al dente, because they're gonna continue to cook with the orzo. There are all sorts of wonderful dishes all over the Dodecanese for lentils cooked with pasta and lentils cooked with rice, and beans cooked with pasta in general. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to this to give some nice flavor to these healthy lentils, and a little bit more water. There has to be liquid in here for when I add the orzo as well. I'm gonna add a bit of Greek dried oregano. The aroma on this is incredibly intense. And a couple of bay leaves, which always go into lentil dishes no matter where they're from in Greece. Just gonna stir this together. And I can see, just by looking at this, that the lentils are pretty much where I want them to be, al dente. The onions have this nice translucent pinkish hue to them. But of course, I'm gonna add these beautiful caramelized onions on top. They're almost ready. And I'm just about ready to add a bit more water to this so that I have enough liquid to cook the pasta. You could actually make this with any kind of small pasta. Just stir that up. This is a very common technique, especially in old recipes in Greece, where you add pasta directly to something else that's been cooking. There's kind of this sense that the pasta actually absorbs even more of the great flavors. It's gonna take about 6 or 7 minutes for the orzo to be tender. And by that time, all of this water will have been absorbed. The lentils will be tender, but still al dente enough to retain their shape. And I'll be ready to serve it with my delicious caramelized onions. If ever there was a definition for healthy comfort food, this would definitely be it. This is ready. The pasta is nice and tender. The lentils have retained their shape. I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil to this, a touch of black pepper, and a sprinkling more of this beautiful dried Greek oregano. Stir that all together. I'm just gonna get some served up. And right over this, I'm just gonna add some of these caramelized onions, which will give a whole other flavor dimension to this very simple dish. A beautiful sweetness that I know will pair really nicely with the earthiness of the lentils and the pasta. Okay, I am ready to taste this. Sweet earth, that's what's coming through for me. The lentils have this beautiful, almost minerality to them, and that's tempered by the softness in the pasta. The oregano is coming through in full bloom, but the onions are so delicious, they're almost like candy over this. And they tie the entire dish together and give it a really unexpected quality. I'm going to pair this with a wine from northern Greece, from Florina, made with 3 different grape varieties, Xinomavro, Merlot, and Syrah. There's a lot of dark fruit on the palate of this wine, and that pairs beautifully with the earthiness, but also the sweetness in the onions. This is simple elegance, and it's absolute comfort food. I have a little bit of a chickpea show and tell going on here. I'm making a very classic dish from the island of Rhodes called pitaroudia. It's basically one of several different types of fritters. This particular kind is made with chickpeas. And I've got dried chickpeas right here, which I've left to soak overnight. They've gotten nice and plump. I took them and drained them and cooked them just in plain water till they're nice and soft, but still a little bit al dente, because one of the nicest things about this recipe is the texture. I want it to be a little bit crunchy. I'm gonna take them and carefully empty them into my little food processor here and pulverize this until I get a kind of mealy consistency. That's exactly what we're looking for. We want these patties to be something that you would consider eating both as a main course and as a mezze, as a little snack or an appetizer. Next thing here of my onions. I want to blend them all together. I'm just going to tear up some of this fresh mint and get that right into this mixture and pulverize that as well. Pitaroudia is a name given to all sorts of plant-based fritters on the island of Rhodes. I've seen them made with mushrooms, with greens, but definitely the most common and popular are these chickpea pitaroudia. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid to this, and I'm doing that in the form of grated fresh tomato. A little bit of salt, some black pepper, and the spice that pretty much defines the cooking of the southeastern Dodecanese, cumin. I'm going to do the second batch, but I want to empty my food processor first. The rest of the chickpeas, the onion, the mint. I'm gonna get more salt in here, some pepper, cumin, grind this all together, and then add the rest of the tomato. I think we're good. And I'm gonna mix everything together with a little bit of flour until this is firm enough to hold its shape when I make it into a little patty. I've got a little bit of all-purpose flour right here. I'm just gonna spoon that onto the plate. Spread it out. Get a little bit of salt on here, a little bit of black pepper, and get a little bit of flour into here. Now you have to eyeball this a little bit, and I wanna show you the texture. You can almost see little bits of chickpea in this mixture, and that's exactly what we want. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of flour, and what we're looking for is a firmness that will enable the chickpea mixture to hold its shape when I get it into little patties. I'm gonna mix this by hand. It's a little bit soft and sticky, so I'm gonna add a little bit more flour. Okay, there we go. This is what we're looking for. It's a little bit wet, which is fine because that means that the chickpea patties will be nice and moist. And that's kind of a rule of thumb for any sort of patty or fritter. You want it to be soft enough so that it's moist when it's done, but also firm enough to hold its shape. You want kind of a golf ball sized piece. Done here with the mixture for the chickpea pitaroudia. The next step is to dredge these on both sides with flour, heat my oil, and I'm using sunflower oil and a little bit of olive oil for flavor. I just want to dredge the other side. Make sure they're nice and floured. This will give them a nice color and a beautiful crunchy exterior. I'm just going to slip these one by one into the frying pan. Do this carefully so that the oil doesn't splatter. You want to make sure to let them brown on the bottom before you turn them. Don't crowd the frying pan because that will change the temperature of the oil and they won't fry so well. They'll be a little bit greasy on the inside if the oil's not hot enough. I think the first one is ready to turn. Do this a little bit gently. That's exactly what we want, this beautiful crust. It can even go a little bit darker than that. I'm just going to turn these one by one, very carefully and gently. They're holding up really well. The first ones are definitely ready. You always want to drain them on paper towels so that they're not greasy. And I'm going to serve them with a quick dip made with Greek yogurt and another really important ingredient from the Dodecanese, tahini, sesame paste. Sesame was actually cultivated for many, many, many years in the Dodecanese. You have to whisk it with a little bit of acid and water to get that smooth paste, which is what we usually think of when we think of tahini. I've got just a little bit of fresh strained lemon juice here and a little bit of water. I want to get this to a nice, thick paste consistency. And right about there, going to add a little bit of salt, garlic, cumin, a little bit of cayenne. That's because I like it, and it goes really well with tahini, and a touch of Greek yogurt. And the combination of tahini and yogurt are really nice together. And a little bit of olive oil to help smoothen out the mix. Okay. Just want to be sure that all the spices are well blended in here. I'm just going to thin this out a little bit, and you can make it as thick or as thin as you like. The longer it sits, it will thicken up. Just want to spoon a little of this dip into my serving plate here. And I like to serve this on flat bread with the delicious tahini sauce. This is super casual food, so don't be afraid to use your hands. Rip a little bit of the lavash by hand. I'm going to add a little dollop of this nice tahini sauce. Because I like spicy food, just a little bit more cayenne. Let's taste it. There's a lot of really great Eastern Mediterranean flavor in this dish. The cumin and the cayenne are coming in very strongly. The tahini adds this beautiful silky texture to something that's really rustic. The chicken fritter, nice texture. The mint adds a nice refreshing note to it. This is a great snack. It's a great midweek meal. It's a nice thing to take to lunch. It's also a very nice thing to nibble on with a little bit of Greek mountain tea. Isi Gian.